Okay, so there's a lot of points that I want to make on this one. So let me get right to it. There's a woman by the name of Zoe Ansary who's a distant relative. Her father and my father were friends in Portland, Oregon in the 1980s. Like Tamim Ansary, they benefited from the pre-9/11 world, coming into America during the counterculture days and having a lot of American friends that like Bob Dylan, Pink Floyd, Fleetwood Mac, Janis Joplin, Quarter Flash, and lots of other things. So they lived a different life, okay? And her father helped my father out in some pretty specific ways, and he died of mysterious circumstances. So Zoe Ansary, who's part Anglo, not sure exactly the specifics of that ancestry, and part Afghani. I'm going to tell you why Zoe Ansary has a different life than Alex Ansary, and get right to the point. I did a longer video on my Facebook page. If you want to watch the long 45-minute video, go to Outside the Box TV with Alex Ansary on Facebook. It's public. This is not an attack on Zoe. I would love to know Zoe as a family member. I would love for people of my father's heritage to see something in me. But unfortunately, it's only been people of my mother's ancestry, mostly men though. A lot of women don't see value really in my content. Very few do. And that's sad. But especially if they're ethnic, because I speak up for their people. So this is the point. Because I speak up for their people and a lot of issues, which you already heard me talk about, war crimes, 9/11, the occupation of their country, and lots of other things regarding our society, New World Order, surveillance society, and so many things. Speaking out about Trump, Obama, Clinton. I mean, these are things that are not easy to stand outside the left-right paradigm, right? So, because of those long list of things that I've discussed over the years, which you've already heard me talk about, I'm extremely shadow banned. People don't support me, and a lot of people don't respect me. However, if you are a beautiful woman, which she is, and because she's a distant relative, I can say that. It's okay for her to marry a tall white man, but there's a big stigma against brown men that may look Muslim or Arabic with white women. And if you don't know that, you haven't been paying attention to the propaganda from Alex Jones. A woman by the name of Morning Mayan came over to my channel years ago and said, we need to keep the Muslim men away from the white women, when all I was talking about is how women use technology to manipulate men. It's my fault for not taking a screenshot of that, but I've learned my lesson. The new Alex Ansary does take screenshots of things that may need to be brought up later. So I made a big mistake not taking screenshots. I repent of my former super stoned unconscious ways, but it is what it is. I will not lie about that. And that hurt my feelings because Morning Mayan watched my channel for years. So I feel that her employment with Alex Jones influenced her in a dark way. So she and other New Agers, white New Agers, can talk about raising their frequency, but a lot of them don't have the love vibration within them to have sympathy for my plight. There's a woman that sent me these essential oils, and because she was celebrating Veterans Day, and because I looked into the background of this company, which is an MLM company, I cut ties with this human being. And she also showed a lack of sympathy with regards to my plight and what I've been through, and just showed a general sense of ignorance. And so a lot of the women of today's culture, including Afghani women, that have never exposed anything in their whole lives, they don't understand what it's like to be in my shoes, even if I have their blood. Zoe Ansary, let's get right to it, was recently featured in Newsweek, and it's not the first time. She's been in Newsweek multiple times, in June at least, in 2023, and recently. And why? She filmed her dog crying to the Lion King. And there's also a clip, and you know, it's a cute clip, I admit it, of her dog crying to old footage of a former friend of the dog, another dog, for example, being shown up on the monitor. So it shows that animals are conscious. I have a black cat, by the way. I love this cat. I picked it up from the Humane Society in Durango in 2018 during a period in my life in which I really need a friend, and I didn't have a friend at the time, right? So I'm not anti-pet, and I like some dogs too, but I'm more of a cat person. But I have a dog as well. Years ago, I traded some messages with Zoe, and I talked a little bit about my father's occupation and how, he traumatized me through some pretty specific ways. And he's very much a hypocrite. I'll talk about that in the future. You really need to buy my future book. And check out my posts on Facebook, but my Facebook is shut down quite a bit. I turned it off. Pay attention to what I post on Substack, okay? And Twitter, and the Outside the Box TV Facebook page, which is public to everybody. Whether you like it or not, it's public to everybody. Whether my personal page is open or not. I also feel that people are more interested in engaging with me on my personal page when they should be focused on the Outside the Box TV page. Promote that page, okay? So a guy like me is only going to have 700 likes, whereas Zoe Ansary is going to have 11 million likes on TikTok, and she's going to be in the mainstream media, and she's going to live a better life in Bend, Oregon, where I always want to live in Bend, Oregon. And it's socially acceptable for this woman of Afghani heritage to be with a white man, and nobody, I guarantee nobody, is saying that that is white genocide. Oh my God, the Afghani women are getting with the white men. Oh my God. In our society, this is the truth. It's when it's the brown male with the white female that people get all up in arms. But it's okay for Amazon Prime and Tubi to push the black man and the white woman mixed race relationships. I'm not attacking that. I want you to see what I see. They say that that's okay. They say that that's preferred, and I'm not supposed to see that that could be even be perceived as black supremacy, where it's okay for the black man to be with the white woman, but if it's a man from my father's ancestry or from another Arabic country with a white woman, that's seen as white genocide. I will also say that they'll probably be pushing that type of content, these corporations, which do not have your best interests at heart, which are not truly, quote, anti-racist. It could be argued that they're pushing people, trying to aggravate white people. And in another recording, we'll talk about how, in many ways, they are manipulating society to get into conspiracy theory. Okay, so they're not hiding conspiracy theory. They're pushing conspiracy theory. But they're pushing far right-wing, Alex Jones-led, David Wilcox-inspired, Gaia TV-inspired, not to diss on George Norrie. But I don't fully trust the guy due to his associations and some of his guests, even if I was on Coast to Coast AM in 2019. And I'll tell you what, I think that it's kind of odd that I discussed the effects of the solar flares, and I was right about their links to wars, more right than a lot of the Coast to Coast guests. And I didn't receive more than 3 or 4 emails with regards to that interview. So this is what I'm here to tell you. If you're a beautiful woman, like Zoe, looking like a super babe model, kind of like Anna Nagel, NAGL, of Seaside, Oregon, or Lincoln City, Oregon, right? So there's many beautiful women in my mother's family and my father's family, right? There is not an abundance of ugly women, unless we're talking about Nabila Ansary, Basir's wife. That's another story. Yeah, but we have some beautiful women, but upstairs, they're self-serving, and that's the truth. And it's not misogyny to call out the dark side of modern feminism, because here's what I want to say. When it comes to these Middle Eastern countries with male domination, even though there's a big attempt to control them and control their lives and who they see and who they talk to, just like my father controls the life of his current wife, which he went overseas, by the way, to pick up in the late 90s, right around the time he kicked me to the curb and started abusing me to the point where I moved out and made mistakes early on in life. See, you like to control these women to bear their children and to make their food and to have sex with them. But in reality, despite their control over these women, they're not really encouraging these women to be better women. On the other flip side of the coin, here in America, where it's promoted to be super promiscuous, to be a stripper, to be an OnlyFans creator. So we go from like the hijab and or the Taliban version of the burqa to this other extreme of being like a super hypersexual, supposed free feminist. We have the death of the family where in reality, the man is eliminated and the state becomes the new mate. The state is married to the woman through the child support, through the other forms of financial assistance. If you have a lot of kids, this is also something that takes place in Australia. There's many ways in which the court system clearly favors the woman over the man. But in my case, I think it was better for me to be with my mother than my father. I think it was a godsend that my abusive psychopathic father was not my primary parental guardian. Despite the criticisms that I already shared with you about my mother, the greater unconsciousness can actually be found in my father. There is beauty in his culture, despite what you've heard. There is some beauty and spirituality in Islam and the Quran. If you know where to look, I recommend Muhammad Al-Way Super Realities over every other YouTube channel. And he's not Afghani. But I told you, there's a reason why when you look up Islam and you look up information regarding that world, you will find other Arabs from other countries. They're usually not Afghani or Iraqi. And I'm telling you, that's not an accident. So let me move this forward. I want to get into my points, and I want you to learn from this video. You see, I shared a few texts with Zoe, and sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I get angry at the unconsciousness of today's men and women, and I will sometimes say stuff and then put them on block if they don't reply within a few days of what I have to say, because I'm offended for them to see my posts and ignore me. Zoe said years ago that she consumed conspiratorial content, and I said, great, check out my content. Never did. She doesn't see value in her own blood. And I would say that is the brainwashing of our own society to hate our own kind, to value other ethnicities as more valuable because the brainwashing of the Americult, maybe out of fear. But I'll tell you what, when Zoe goes on Facebook years ago, and when people start bashing all Muslims, and she says, hey guys, my family's from these regions, don't bash them all. She's more than likely, because she doesn't have mainstream conspiracy theorists that listen to Alex Jones and Jeff Rentz and David Icke, but regular people, I'm assuming. They might respect her and go, okay, Zoe, we understand. Whereas when I stood up for myself years ago, people acted like maybe I was anti-white or part of the white genocide program, that I should have birth guilt. I don't sense that right now, but there are absolutely people unsubscribing to my Substack and unfriending me on Facebook. And I'm totally okay with that. I totally support that. I want people that are on the dark side to unsubscribe from me, to not talk to me, to not donate to me. Okay, I'm going to speak my truth, but I'm here to tell you, again, when I try to bring some true diversity to my YouTube channel by trying to share my recent videos that you've seen, that you've liked, on my Substack and on my YouTube channel, due to AI shadow banning and perhaps AI mind control, and AI is really being led by an entity, my posts will not go through. They continue to be pending, including in my father's group. They may not even know that I'm even trying to post. I'm sure my father won't want me posting, but there's other admins to the group. I did some experiments a few months ago with the telepathy and psychic powers group, where I ran 2 different Facebook pages at the same time. And it would allow one through and the other under my own name. It marked it as spam. Also, when I post my YouTube videos on Facebook, it puts up a warning telling me that I'm sharing, check this out, if you can believe this, pro-Russia disinformation, showing literally either Ukrainian or Russian, what looks like Russian letters. I'm anything but pro-Russian. You see what I'm saying, folks? How someone like me, who's tried to speak up for the victims of war and your society and what could be happening to white Americans in the event of certain things. And even if Russia and China don't attack, I've still been right about a lot of things. That's not the only thing that I've talked about. I've talked about the unseen forces, the jinn, the archons, the demons. I've talked about off-grid living. I've talked about the solar flares. I've pushed back against the dark side of MGTOW, but also created some MGTOW. But ultimately, I've pushed back against the dark feminine rising, which strikes a chord with a lot of MGTOW folks. I've talked about the dark side of Portland, Oregon, and I'm coming back to the Portland, Oregon airwaves, thanks to 2 volunteers, one of which is homeless right now. He's literally been in his car for over 10 years, and he's got a story to tell. There's another guy named, well, I'm going to leave his name out of it, but he's in Portland, and he's been involved in activism for years. He's Jewish, and he's telling me that there's a big-time Nazi problem with a lot of the homeless, a lot of tweaker gangs. There's a lot of chop shops that are in Portland, Oregon. So even though I stand against the discrimination towards the homeless, let me articulate it this way: the good homeless. And modern day society is not distinguishing, I'm already off topic, between the good homeless and the bad homeless. They're just lumping them all into one category, and that's a big, big mistake. You don't want to lump all of society into one category. Not any race, not any culture, not any religion, not the women or the men. But overall, in this New World Order structure, most of society is pretty much soulless. So here's my next point. TikTok, in which Zoe Ansary has benefited from showing her beauty, not to degrade her, but to tell you the truth. I find this unconscious for Zoe to be in support of TikTok, to contribute to TikTok, when TikTok is owned by the ByteDance Corporation, and they have tracked the family members of dissidents, the Muslim dissidents, who they have put into concentration camps. It would take longer to tell you the full story, but I encourage you to look it up for yourself, okay? Next point that I'm gonna make. These camps in which they have the Muslims forced to live in China, YouTube/Google, okay? Can you hear me now? Which shadow bans my content, which doesn't suggest it. Google/YouTube promotes female influencers willing to take that money, honey, to say that the Muslims living in camps in China today are living in paradise, when that is a lie. So there's a Vice link, a Vice News YouTube video, which details this. They may have changed the algorithm since, but this is a report that came out in 2022. So this is a big, big deal. I also talked to you about racist algorithms. It's not just an algorithm that promotes white people, and some say that it suppresses white people. That's not my experience with YouTube, to be frank. Blacks, whites, and East Indians seem to have preferential treatment on the algorithm. Doesn't matter what the topic is. So you might think to yourself, where are the Native Americans? Where are the Latinos? Where are the Afghans? Where are the English-speaking Chinese? Where are the English-speaking Japanese? It's not that they're not there. They are there. It's just that you're not really going to see them. There is some controversy regarding Julie Epperly. That's fine. But Julie Epperly, a woman of Vietnamese heritage, spits out a great deal of truth. So I don't watch her regularly, just like I don't watch Gypsy Fox all the time, but I do follow some of their content. I have very specific content creators. So one's Vietnamese, one's Jewish. There's some black content creators that I followed in the past, and they create a lot of content, like Eli Ritchie, who's a mixed race heritage out of Portland, Oregon. Although he's not really doing the live streams anymore, he also was viciously attacked in the streets, which he didn't deserve, just simply for filming, by out of control, violent homeless. So don't think that I'm defending all the homeless. I'm going to be in a future report telling you what's been told to me about some of the unconscious activity going down in Portland, Oregon from some of these predators, to be frank, that have moved into the city of my birth to sow mayhem and destruction and chaos. Okay, so as I stand up for the good homeless, like my buddy Jim in Portland, Oregon, who helped me out back in the day when I was doing the live TV show, there's also a lot of bad homeless too, that a lot of good homeless got to watch out for. Otherwise, they themselves will get beat up. As my friend in Portland, Oregon, the other guy I'm not mentioning, had his nose broken. He lives in an apartment complex where he knocked on his neighbor's door. He asked them to turn the volume down, and they smashed his face in with a fire hydrant. TikTok is involved in some serious brainwashing. There was a woman, I won't mention her name or show her face, But she spoke favorably about me on her channel more than once, and kind of developed some feelings for her, although she's with somebody else. But had she not been with somebody else, this is somebody who I would have enjoyed dating. Well, she got involved in TikTok in 2019 and 2020. And I want to be polite here. Let me just say this. Her cognitive abilities seem to have taken a back seat with her TikTok endeavors. I saw videos in where she's hula hooping and she's like in her 30s with multiple kids, trying to look like a sexy teenager, to be frank. Other videos where she's filming her eyes. And so there are people doing these YouTube shorts now and these TikTok shorts now. And I don't understand the appeal of these short videos. Okay, just don't understand it. And so, due to the fact, hopefully it won't happen, okay? Hopefully it won't happen. But if we are occupied and invaded by China or Russia, in my opinion, there is no doubt that they are going to use the TikTok data and the harvesting of American data to go after people that they've already determined are going to be their targets when they come to collect on the debt in which America is never ever planning to pay back. And don't forget that China would not be where it is today if the United States did not give it missile technology, not only during the Clinton years, but other administrations as well. Longer conversation for that one. That's a big one. That's a big one. That's a whole documentary film right there. So for these beautiful women of our culture and of various ethnicities that come from the land of the bombed, for them to come into this culture, yes, they're free now. They're free of the old world, of the patriarchy, of male domination. But are they really free as they marry themselves to the state, as they marry themselves to big tech, as they show some skin? You see the extremes here? You see in the other world that control them, there's the burqa or the hijab. Although I respect the women from those societies that may decide and they're going to keep the hijab for their own protection. I get that. We talked about that. But then the American culture, it's promoted even towards kids, children at a really young age, to get into stripping, pornography, group sex, drugs. And the bigger the liar you are, the bigger the racist you are, the more fake news you push, the more popular you're going to be on social media. Doesn't matter what the platform is. And ethnic voices, especially ethnic voices pushing back against all forms of racism, they are shadow banned by AI. I cannot go into any groups and talk about my plight or what I know, because if you go into a mainstream anti-racist group, it's going to be run by Antifa, and they're going to call the shots. It's going to be about Black Lives Matter. It's going to be about LGBTQ, LMNOP, XYZ. I want to keep my language clean here. And so when I say that there's an imbalance in the force, that's not me being anti-black. That's not me being anti-gay. But our society is so in decay that today's unconscious person will see me as a hater. The left will see me as a right-winger. The right-wingers or the right will see me as a snowflake left-winger. My white family will reject me because of my father's ancestry. My father's ancestry will reject me because of my mother's ancestry and whatever my father has said about me. Today, I wrote a longer letter to my father because he said that the long letter that I wrote to him put him to sleep when I reached out to him on Facebook and gave him some very deep, specific personal information about my journey and the things that have happened to me. Things that most of you are aware of by now. I didn't tell you for a number of years, and I came back to the internet recently and I told you a lot. I told you a lot. I told my dad a lot too. And even though my dad had his nose broken by the Clackamas County Police in 1993 when he got pulled over for a DUI, and even though he was ripped off a TriMet bus in 1978 because he fell asleep drunk, and he was beat up and they called him racial slurs that are normally attributed to Mexicans, even though he had been punched in the face for flipping a guy off of Foster Avenue. And who knows what else happened to him. he doesn't have compassion for his own son. Okay. Not only is it not an accident that I was born with this unique combination of genetics, it seems to be not an accident that I would have a real lack of empathy from my family. I hope my mother comes around to seeing aspects of the light. With regards to my father, it's like Luke Skywalker battling Darth Vader, and at the very end of Return of the Jedi, him taking the helmet off of Darth Vader, knowing that as he takes the helmet off, that Darth Vader only has a few moments to live. And he wants to see and hear from his father without the filter and know if there is good in him before he dies. This is happening, folks, with me and him right now. And I'm no longer going to be afraid to talk about my ancestry and this broken relationship with my father, who has served very loyally to the U.S. military in the years that followed the 9/11 attacks. And so while I embarked on my path of exposing the truth about that day and these immoral wars, while he cries out in his own way at what has been done to his country, he did serve those forces of destruction knowingly and willfully for several decades and spent more time translating documents for the government than translating the words of his ancestors' poetry. That would be the famous, I believe, Zoe Ansary, which none of you have ever heard of because there's no Wikipedia page about him. There's so many people, famous people in my ancestry that have they're not well known in today's society. And so, Tamim Ansary gets a pass for being half Anglo, half Afghani, but staying out of conspiracy theories and being accepted by white Americans. By not drawing conspiracy theorists to his field, he hasn't faced the ire of the fake Islamic invasion meme. I did for a number of years. I did live in Colorado without a gun in a Trump-supporting part of North America. And I had good reason to be concerned for my safety and sanity. When at that time, that type of fake news from Cambridge Analytica and others, really orchestrated by the Russians and others with Facebook's knowledge, targeted 3 states specifically: Colorado, Virginia, and Florida. So I'm not Superman, folks. I'm not Rambo. I'm not bulletproof. But it takes bravery. It takes guts. It takes courage. It takes a true faith in God to live in an environment like that without heavy arsenal. Most humans, most white men would never do that. Most white men would never, with their own given birth name, go unarmed to a community like that, especially if they're politically different, let alone spiritually different and ethnically different. My time there in Archuleta County doesn't make me a coward, and it doesn't make me a coward either when I saw the writing on the wall and decided that I was not going to stay. I did my studies into the people that ran the Facebook pages there, and I did not do anything to harm them. But I came to realize that they had the capability and the inclination through their own brainwashing to maybe hurt me down the line. And so I chose to cut my losses and leave. I lost out on the land. I didn't end up with my land doubling like other people have in Colorado. When I sold it, it was sold at a loss. And as I said, it's gone to my teeth. I also bought a vehicle. Right, I do have a car, folks. It is a vehicle that is a SUV that was made after the year 2010. I'll leave it at that. And it does not have air conditioning. So I kind of bought it quickly. I bought it for about, I believe, $8,000 or $8,500 from a used car lot. Sometimes I regret it, but it's a better car than that piece of garbage that I owned in Colorado. So maybe one day I'll take it on a road trip to Colorado. Maybe one day I'll go to Central Oregon. Maybe one day I'll come and visit Zoe Ansary. She'll watch my content. I'll meet her husband and we'll be one big happy family. But I don't think that that is going to happen. Even though I thought for years and years, eventually there would be women of my father's ancestry that would see the good in me. The reality is, it doesn't matter what ancestry you happen to be. The vast majority of the human population, at this point, I'm looking at maybe 99%. They're not with the true God, this reality, or the true Christ. And you don't even have to be necessarily a follower of Christianity or Jesus Christ to be a servant of the true Creator. I think that you can be a member of certain other religions and be a non-radical one, like the Sufi Muslim. And by the way, I bought his book. It's called A Timeless Reality, and it's going to be arriving in a few days. It's like 400 pages. And I felt the spiritual callings, just so you know, to type in the certain search words into YouTube itself that led me to his channel to begin with. So even though there is great censorship from AI, when you choose to not talk politically, as this Sufi does not speak politically, against Trump or against Nazis or against any of that, he just speaks in a general spiritual tone, and he is respected by many, many Christians and followers of Christ. And I can guarantee you, those are not typical conspiracy folks. But then there's another channel called The Brand 23 on BitChute. Here I was for years thinking that all of BitChute was evil, but yet there's Gypsy Fox with 2 X's. There's The Brand 23. Check them out on BitChute. So even though BitChute is a little bit out there, it's the wild, wild west for people into certain ideologies, it does also provide a platform for other people that are speaking their truth also. I'm not going to be joining BitChute because there's still too much negativity there for a super sensitive like me. But if other people are going to get on BitChute and speak their truth, then more power to them. So bringing it back to Zoe. It's a beautiful video of a dog crying to the Lion King, but here's the thing. It's like a big promotion for Disney. Lion King allegedly had the words sex written in the sky in one particular scene in the movie there. Disney itself has been involved in the sexualization of the youth. So not only are we seeing women like TikTok and the woman that used to watch my channel that got way deep into TikTok, not only is TikTok involved in brainwashing these young women, showing the sexualization of the preteens, twerking and this, that, and the other. There's a documentary, by the way, I haven't seen it, but I see people post about it on Twitter. It's called Cuties, and it was on Netflix. And it's about the sexualization of young females, younger than teenage, okay, at a level that's not okay and not healthy. And you need to ask yourself, why is that okay? Why do they allow the deep fake porn where women get their faces harvested from social media and put on porn sites and then doxxed? What type of government would allow that? And so even though there's a lot of women that are being conditioned to think that they've now been rescued from the barbarians of the Eastern world, in reality, there are barbarians and warlocks and witches in control of this new world order system that does not have these women best interests at heart, does not protect their data, does not protect their information. China has deliberately hacked into that information. So has Russia. And so when you're dealing with corporations like ByteDance, which own TikTok, and they track the family members of the dissidents, if they're willing to do that, what are they willing to do to the beautiful women of North America that have given these big tech websites so much access into their personal lives? So I would say that women like Zoe Ansary, women like the woman that used to watch my channel but now no longer does, they think they're free. They think they're awake. They think they're conscious. They think they're loving. But in reality, they're anything but. The Newsweek article talks about the dog being of a mixed breed, and it's celebrated. But yet we live in a world where human beings that are of certain mixed race heritages, especially if they're male, and they're going to speak out against the system, they do not receive the same amount of love. And finally, I have seen women from Pakistan, from East India, and other countries get massive promotion in mainstream media by showing their families, by maybe doing some cooking videos, by showing their pets. But I know in my heart, and maybe you do as well, that if they were to do the right thing and speak up for their own people and against Western imperialism, they would not be so popular and loved by the people of today's day and age. I'm Alex Ansary, bringing you this very important, thoughtful video. I hope it caused you to think a little bit deeper about the real world that we're living in today.